"Sir, you need to vacate this seat immediately. First class is for Platinum Elite passengers only." The words hung in the stale cabin air like a final verdict. The plane rocked gently in mid-turbulence as Elias Blackwell looked up from his tablet, blinking once as he processed the sudden challenge. He did not speak right away. Instead, he straightened in seat 1A, brushing an invisible wrinkle from his lapel, his breathing so steady. He had flown this route dozens of times. He had earned every mile, every upgrade, every credential. But today, none of that seemed to matter. The lead flight attendant, Harlow Quinn, stood over him with crossed arms and a face that said she had already made up her mind. "You need to move to economy," she said again, louder this time, glancing at the other first-class passengers for support. A few heads turned. Some leaned closer. In seat 1B, Tristan Langford, a well-dressed man in a paisley tie, snorted and said with a smirk, "He doesn't belong up here." Probably wandered up front, thinking no one would notice. Another passenger adjusted his camera phone, subtly beginning to record. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? If what's happening to Elias feels familiar, leave a comment below. Justice only matters when we speak up. Stay with us, because this man turns the tables without ever leaving his seat." Elias set down his tablet and looked Harlow in the eye. "Check your records," he said calmly. "I'm in the right seat." Harlow's lips tightened. "Your ticket says economy. Take your assigned seat, or we'll have to involve security when we land." She pulled a paper stub from her pocket and thrust it toward him. "Here, take this. You're assigned 24C. Elias glanced at it and did not take it. "That's not my name," he replied, "and that's not my seat." Clifford Vance, the cabin supervisor, appeared behind Harlow, scrolling on his crew tablet with quick flicks of his finger. "Confirmed," he said loud enough for the nearby row to hear. "This passenger is not on the manifest for 1A. His booking must have been reassigned." He turned the screen briefly to show a blank space under Elias's name. "You've been flagged. You need to move." Tristan leaned forward again. "I knew something was off. This is first class, not charity seating." Murmurs rippled across the cabin as Elias sat still, breathing evenly, his fingertips resting on the armrest. "You're making a mistake," he said, "and every step you take is being logged." The plane shook gently again as the pilot adjusted altitude. Someone in 2D pulled out their phone. The screen of Elias's seat suddenly went dark. Clifford grinned. "You're disconnected now." Elias turned to him. "So are you." Harlow rolled her eyes. "We'll let the captain know you're refusing to comply." But she had not checked the passenger records thoroughly. She had not recognized the quiet force behind those calm eyes. Elias Blackwell was not just another businessman in a sharp navy blazer. He was the founder and CEO of Omnitus Solutions, the very firm that Apex Air had recently signed a multi-million-dollar contract with to modernize their passenger verification and seat reservation systems. The irony was thick, but Elias was not interested in theatrics. What mattered now was exposure. What mattered was letting them dig their own grave with each careless command. Behind him in seat 2B, Sienna Reyes, an Omnitus systems analyst, watched quietly, already navigating her tablet to Apex Air's internal crew behavior records. In 3A, Rafael Soto, a seasoned CNN field correspondent, had started a discreet live stream, his camera angled low, his face unreadable. In 1C, Nia Vargas, an active Reddit user with a large following in aviation communities, had begun recording with a single tap. In the economy cabin, Amara Crow, Omnis's head legal advisor, was texting Elias updates from the system logs. Clifford just posted on crew chat, unauthorized in 1A. "I'm tracking everything." Up in the cockpit, Captain Delgado tapped a button near his collar that activated his personal body cam. an unofficial safety measure he had taken since the last time he saw a black passenger falsely accused. And on the other end of a private satellite line, Apex Air COO Isolde Crow picked up her phone with a puzzled voice. "Elias?" she said. "What's going on?" He spoke clearly into the seat console handset. "Isolde, I want you to pull up Harlequin's file, specifically past passenger interactions." There was a pause. Then Isolde's voice returned, hushed and troubled. 2 documented complaints, both racial bias. One filed internally, one external. Never disciplined. I'm flagging this now. Elias ended the call and looked at Harlow without a hint of a smile. "You might want to prepare a statement," he said. "I don't think your supervisors are going to back you up much longer." Sienna's tablet pinged with confirmation. Harlow's record was loaded. Clifford's recent system changes were visible, and Elena Vargas, the in-flight manager, was listed as recently locking Elias's profile without cause. Sienna sent a quiet text to Elias. "Everything's here. You're clear." "She's not." Elias nodded. The cabin rumbled again, but it was not just the engines now. The tension was shifting. People sensed something was unfolding beyond a seating dispute. Nia Vargas looked up from her phone and said aloud, just loud enough to carry, "This man is not causing a scene. He's being targeted." A few passengers murmured. Tristan scoffed. "He's overreacting. Just take the damn economy seat." Clifford looked toward Harlow. "Want me to print a removal notice?" Harlow nodded. "Do it." Elias raised his voice, not in anger, but with conviction. "Do that, and you'll be explaining it on every major network before we land." It was already too late. The footage was uploading. The stream had crossed tens of thousands of viewers, and Sienna had just entered an Omnifair override code that granted them access to crew directives quietly stored in Apex Air's training app. One line caught her attention. "Prioritize elite appearance profiles when resolving conflicts." It was tagged active. She looked up, stunned. "Elias," she whispered. "I found the trigger." He did not look away from Harlow. "Send it, because justice would not just be spoken. It would be automated." The cabin lights dimmed slightly as turbulence persisted, but the tension brewing in first class had nothing to do with the weather. Harlow Quinn returned to the front row with a new strategy, this time with the microphone in her hand. She clicked it on, cleared her throat, and addressed the entire cabin in an even tone that barely masked the panic behind it. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're addressing a security concern in the forward cabin. Please remain seated and refrain from recording or engaging." The announcement dropped like a stone in water. Conversations halted. Heads turned. Clifford Vance, already seated at the jump seat nearby, tapped into the crew app again and publicly flagged Elias Blackwell's seat as compromised. His caption read, "Potential risk in 1A. No confirmed ID match." In the row ahead, Tristan Langford shot Elias a disgusted look, stood up despite the fastened seatbelt sign, and shoved Elias's shoulder. "You heard her," he barked. "This is about our safety. Apex is just protecting us." Elias stayed seated, his jaw tight, but his voice level. "Touch me again," he said, "and I promise your name will be known for all the wrong reasons." Nia Vargas, who had stayed silent until now, stood as well, her voice strong and pointed. "Where's the evidence?" she asked. "You're accusing this man of what exactly?" Clifford snapped his head toward her. "Ma'am, I need you to sit down immediately." Passengers, now visibly anxious from the turbulence and the rising tension, began to murmur louder. "Remove him," someone said. "Why are they letting this continue? Why is he resisting?" Elias looked straight ahead and spoke to no one in particular. "This is criminal slander." Harlow did not flinch. She turned to Clifford and whispered something unintelligible. Moments later, Clifford tapped a new command into the app. Elias's reservation was now marked restricted. The screen at 1A blinked and shut down. Again, Clifford leaned in. "You're not staying here," he said coldly. "Your record's locked. You've been removed from the manifest." Elena Vargas, the in-flight manager who had been watching from a few rows back, stepped forward and whispered to Harlow. "He's a problem. Do it now." With a simple click on her tablet, Elena locked Elias's Skyflyer profile using their satellite link. A chime rang in the cabin. Elias, now glancing calmly between them, said, "You're all exposed, and you don't even realize it." Tristan turned to the cabin. "Come on, folks. Who wants this guy up here?" He laughed and pointed. "First class isn't a shelter. Apex is for elites." Clifford, emboldened, approached with a folded sheet of paper in hand. "Mr. Blackwell, this is your formal removal notice. You're to move to the economy section immediately or face legal consequences." Phones lit up. Screens glowed. Elias did not touch the paper. Instead, he glanced down at his smartwatch. "This is being documented," he said. "All of it." Then came a quiet moment of memory. Elias's mind, clear despite the storm around him, flashed back to a conference years earlier where a boardroom of investors told him Omnifair would never win FAA contracts because aviation is about legacy, not disruption. That was the day he began designing Omnifair's proprietary conflict tracking system, and it was running now. In the cockpit, Captain Delgado adjusted his headset and checked a secondary feed. He had just overheard Elena via a mistakenly open crew channel mutter, "Older black men like him never fit right in first class." Captain Delgado blinked. Then he reached for his phone and quietly texted the quote to Nia Vargas in 1C. Her eyes widened as she read the message. She looked over at Rafael Soto, who nodded silently. He had captured Elena's voice, too, from his live stream in Seat 3A. "We've got it," he whispered. "We have the motive." In a matter of seconds, Rafael's CNN feed crossed hundreds of thousands of live viewers. The headline beneath the video read, "Bias in the sky. Apex passenger faces allegations with no proof." In her seat, Naya was already typing. She opened Reddit and dropped the first explosive post in the aviation community, attaching a screenshot of Elena's directive, which Sienna had quietly sent her. "Prioritize elite appearance profiles when resolving seat conflicts," she wrote. "I'm on this Apex flight. Black man in 1A being humiliated. No reason. Crew is lying. They have a protocol targeting passengers by looks. We have proof." She signed off with #ApexBias. In less than 2 minutes, her post hit the front page. Minutes later, it had hundreds of thousands of upvotes. The comments section exploded. Unreal. "Sue them. Boycott Apex." Screenshots spread to Twitter and Facebook. Sienna, still silent in 2B, activated Omnifair's internal mirroring tool, capturing every input from the crew tablets in real time. She whispered to Elias, "The directive is active. I just found Elena's override code." Elias gave a slow nod, then adjusted the collar of his blazer. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder. Someone stood in the aisle. "You're not throwing him out," the man said. "This is wrong." Elena appeared again and began ordering passengers to sit, yelling, "Phones down, all of them. This is confidential." But no one listened. Screens lit up everywhere now. Rafael's CNN feed had crossed even more live viewers. NBC's onboard crew in 4A began setting up a proper camera. A child in 2C whispered, "Daddy, are they bullying that man?" Clifford's face was red. "That Reddit post is fake," he shouted. Elena gritted her teeth and turned to Harlow. "Confiscate the phones, I don't care how." But Harlow did not move. She had seen the same thing everyone else had. The entire cabin, first class, economy, and beyond, was watching, and the world was watching with them. The air inside the first-class cabin had become thick with noise, tension, and digital heat. Elena Vargas, holding the intercom like a weapon, clicked it on and declared, "For the safety of our passengers and crew, we are addressing a confirmed threat in the forward cabin. Remain calm." Her voice was crisp, rehearsed, the same way you would expect a pre-recorded evacuation notice to sound. But everyone knew exactly who she meant. Tristan Langford, never one to miss a performance, stood up, snatched a drink coaster from the service tray, and flung it at Elias Blackwell's chest with a sneer. "This seat's not yours. You were never supposed to be here," he said, loud enough for every aisle to hear. The coaster bounced harmlessly off Elias's navy blazer, landing face down beside his tablet. Elias did not move. He picked it up, placed it back on the tray, and said, "What you just did will follow you longer than this flight." But Clifford Vance was not done. From the galley, he grinned, tapped a new command into the crew app, and said coldly, "You're officially erased." A quiet beep followed. Elias's name disappeared from the flight manifest entirely. Passengers gasped. One muttered, "Did he just wipe the guy out of the system?" Rafael Soto, still streaming from 3A, zoomed in on the app screen as it flashed red. NBC's onboard producer in 4A whispered into her mic, "We're staying on this. Do not cut." Harlow Quinn watched, her face tightening as the consequences caught up with the lies. Elias looked up at Elena. "You've locked yourself into this and The doors closing. Just behind Elias, Sienna Reyes tapped away furiously. "They've overwritten your profile," she whispered. "But I've already mirrored the code. We can flip this." In the distance, Captain Delgado sent a silent cockpit transmission. He had just recorded Elena calling Elias an image risk. Her words, sourced straight from her headset, were already uploading to a secure drive. Tristan turned again and shouted to the whole cabin, "How much longer are we going to let this guy play victim? This is first class. It's for people who built something, not for someone who stumbled in." Elias blinked once. "You want to talk about building something?" he said softly. "I've spent 30 years building what you're about to see fall apart." For a moment, time stilled. The screens flickered once more as turbulence rolled through the cabin like a slow wave. In his mind, Elias was back in a New York boardroom years earlier, surrounded by executives who dismissed him. "Aviation belongs to institutions," one had said. "You're not one of them." That same week, Omnisys Solutions was born from his home office, funded on personal savings and a promise to his late father. Elias had sworn then that no system would ever erase someone like him again, and now the time had come to make good on that vow. He reached down, pulled a slim Omnisys USB from his briefcase, and handed it backward to Rafael Soto without turning. "Get this to CNN," he said. "It's time." Clifford lunged forward to intercept, but Rafael already had it in his grip. In seat 2B, Sienna pulled out her own secondary device and began uploading from Omnisys's secured satellite channel. "Just in case, backup's on the way," she said. "We're taking their filter algorithm public." In the aisle, passengers whispered, "Did he just say CNN? Is he leaking something?" Elena caught on. "Stop them!" she barked at Harlow. "Shut this down now!" But Harlow did not move. She had seen enough. Rows back, Amara Crow's phone pinged. "CNN online," the message read. "Uploading now." In 3A, Rafael opened the USB and launched the file. Apex Internal Filtering Protocol, PDF. The document was horrifying. A coded algorithm that factored race, age, and attire into automatic seat validation checks. Tags like profile mismatch, risk appearance, level 2, recommend reassignment within minutes. The file hit CNN under the headline, "Exclusive, Apex's internal system penalizes passengers based on appearance. On screen, the anchor's voice cracked through. This just in. CNN has obtained verified documents showing Apex Airlines uses an internal algorithm to suppress seating rights for certain passengers. We're learning more about a man currently on board who may have triggered this by simply sitting in his assigned seat. Comments flooded in. This is outrageous. Systemic profiling on a plane. He warned them. Within minutes, the page hit millions of views. Sienna, still working in the seat behind Elias, piped the CNN stream directly into the cabin via the in-seat screens, overriding the previous flight info. One by one, passengers turned to see a CNN graphic labeled Apex's biased algorithm. The breakdown. Elena's face turned pale. Clifford stood frozen. Tristan backed away toward 1C, muttering, "This can't be real." But it was. The numbers were real. The code was real. The system was exposed. NBC's camera turned its full attention to Elias, who had not moved from his seat in 1A. He picked up his tablet, refreshed the feed, and saw the headline for himself. A quiet vibration buzzed on his wrist. It was Amara. Her message: DOJ just opened an investigation. You're clear to proceed. He typed back. Shut it down. Sienna leaned forward. You sure? He nodded once. Kill switch protocol. She tapped the icon on her dashboard. Omnifair console command ready. Raphael looked at Elias. You planned for this? Elias replied simply. I planned for every version of this. The cabin was silent. Every screen showed the same image now. Apex's algorithm exposed, streaming live on CNN. In 1C. Jaya Vargas posted the video feed to the aviation community with the caption, "He warned them." They didn't listen. The post surged past 1 million upvotes within minutes. Elena turned and hissed to Harlow, "Tell the pilot to lock the system, block all external access." But in the cockpit, Captain Delgado had already overridden the order. Too late, he said aloud to no one. It's out. Elias looked around the cabin, not to savor the moment, but to mark it. This was not about revenge. It was about visibility. You tried to erase me, he said calmly to Clifford, Harlow, and Elena. But I designed the system you used, and I kept a back door open. And from his seat, Elias Blackwell took command of the narrative. Because some systems do not get fixed from the outside. Sometimes, you have to sit down to shut it all down. At Apex Air corporate headquarters in Dallas, the mood had shifted from quiet to full-blown emergency. Conference calls buzzed on speakerphones. Executives stood around glass-walled offices with furrowed brows and half-drunk coffees, refreshing their phones with shaking hands. On the central wall of the operations center, a live CNN feed played in grim silence. The words at the bottom of the screen read, "Breaking. Apex algorithm discriminates by appearance. Source, CEO of Omnifair. On board this flight." Darius Reed, Apex's EO, burst into the war room, holding his tablet like it was a live grenade. "What the hell happened?" he barked. "Why is Elias Blackwell's name attached to this?" One of the digital officers, pale-faced and sweating, stammered. "We didn't know it was him, sir. The crew flagged him as suspicious. System auto-reported a mismatch." Darius slammed the tablet on the table. "You don't mismatch a man who built your infrastructure." Elena Vargas's name flashed across the top of the screen as CNN played back her in-flight announcement about a security concern. Darius watched the footage in stunned silence. Then he turned to legal. "Who authorized our software to scan for appearance mismatches?" A junior compliance officer shrugged. "That protocol, it was buried in an update years ago. No one's claimed ownership since." In the corner, Apex's media liaison whispered, "Apex bias is trending above the Super Bowl. It just hit 20 million views." Darius rubbed his temple. Shut down external feeds, lock social media, and someone get Elena on the line, now. But the line was not connecting, because Elena was still airborne, and she had no idea her career was about to hit the tarmac harder than the plane itself. Back on the flight, turbulence rocked the aircraft as passengers sat riveted by the drama unfolding on their in-seat screens. The cabin was not angry anymore. It was silent, still watching Elias Blackwell with a kind of collective awe. He had not stood up. He had not raised his voice. Yet from seat 1A, with nothing but his tablet and a team of unseen allies, he had exposed a national scandal and forced the world to listen. Harlow Quinn, who had once towered over him with orders, now hovered near the galley, gripping a cabinet for balance, her eyes wide and darting. Clifford Vance had stopped pretending to be in control. He stood frozen near the cockpit door, sweat dripping from his temple. In economy, passengers craned their necks to glimpse the first-class cabin, like it was the front row of history. "Is that him?" someone whispered. "That's the guy who brought it all down." Elias did not react. He was scanning server logs sent by Sienna from 2B. Every keystroke Elena made, every override Clifford tapped, every racist comment captured on cockpit surveillance. It was all there, compiled, tied up, ready. And then his phone buzzed. Amara Crow's message flashed. "Darius just tried to blame Elena. She blamed Clifford. They're all panicking. You're greenlit." Elias responded with two words. Sienna took a steady breath and tapped a new command. "Omnis's global override. Execute system freeze." At that moment, Apex's live ticketing software, used in over 70 airports and linked to more than 200 international travel partners, began to slow, then fail. Customers attempting to book flights were met with frozen screens, error messages, and blank loadouts. Agents at airport counters stared in confusion as boarding confirmations vanished. And within minutes, Apex's entire booking operation was offline. Rafael Soto, still filming, got the message from his producer in Atlanta. "They shut the system down. It's real. This is historic." He whispered to Elias. "They're cooked." Elias nodded once. "Not yet, but they're close." Sienna leaned in from behind. "It's complete. We've locked every non-critical system. Emergency ops remain, but they can't sell a seat. Not until we release it." In the cockpit, Captain Delgado got the alert, glanced back at the chaos in first class, and smiled faintly. "Good," he murmured. "About time someone held them accountable." At Apex HQ, screens started going dark. Error alerts flooded the command center. "Booking queue down!" someone yelled. "Interface is frozen!" another shouted. Darius Reed stared, mouth open, as he realized what Elias had done. "He's not exposing us," he whispered. "He's disabling us." Legal asked, "Is this cybercrime?" The CTO shook his head. "Omnisys is in our vendor contract. They have fail-safe authority under abuse protocols, and this qualifies." Darius's hands trembled. "He's holding us hostage." Then a louder alert hit the main screen. Forbes breaking news. Elias Blackwell shuts down. Apex booking system. Mid-flight. Airline accused of systemic discrimination. The article included Sienna's screenshots, Nia Vargas's Reddit post, and links to the full CNN leak. A quote from Elias appeared in bold. "I didn't want to crash their system. I wanted to hold up a mirror. This is what happens when you design injustice into the code." The comms team dropped their phones. The legal team stood in stunned silence. Darius whispered, "We're finished." On board, Clifford tried one last time to recover control. "We can fix this," he told Elena, whose hands trembled as she stared at her now disabled crew tablet. "Maybe we can tell Elias it was a system glitch," but she did not reply. Because her tablet had just rebooted with a new screen, one she had not seen before. It read, "System override initiated by Omnisys Command, E. Blackwell." Below it, a message pulsed. "Terminate access." She tapped it instinctively, and the screen blinked off permanently. From seat 1A, Elias turned to her, calm, composed. "That was your last input." And then his eyes lifted to the cabin as a new notification flashed across every screen. "System suspended pending compliance review." Elias picked up his tablet, typed a final line into the command log, and sent it to Amara. "Now we talk terms," she replied instantly. "Forbes just hit 5 million shares. They're calling it a digital mutiny. You're trending worldwide." He set the tablet down and folded his hands. Around him, first-class passengers, once silent, complicit, indifferent, were now witnesses. No one reached for champagne. No one complained about service. They watched a man wronged in silence rewrite the rules mid-air. The plane flew on, steady and smooth now. But for Apex Air, the ground had already begun to fall away. At cruising altitude, with the booking system suspended and CNN streaming live to every seat screen, the cabin of the flight had gone quiet. Not the silence of fear, but of realization. First-class passengers who had once glared now sat still, their eyes pinned to the man in seat 1A, who had not raised his voice, had not moved an inch, and yet had brought an entire airline to its knees. Elias Blackwell tapped once on his tablet, sending a secure message to Amara Crow. "Bring Darius in. I want him face to face." Minutes later, a live video feed blinked onto the cabin's overhead screens. There, in a boardroom back in Dallas, stood Darius Reed, tie loosened, face pale, flanked by 2 Apex attorneys and 1 visibly shaken PR rep. He cleared his throat. "Elias," he began, his voice strained, "we're asking you to restore the system. This has become a crisis beyond your personal case." Elias did not blink. "Your crisis began the moment your crew decided my presence was a threat. I'm here to resolve it, but I do so on my terms." Darius tried to recover. "We're prepared to issue a formal apology and investigate the matter fully." Elias looked down at the list on his screen and read aloud without emotion. "Fire Harlow Quinn. Fire Clifford Vance. Fire Elena Vargas. Ban Tristan Langford from future flights. Acknowledge your algorithmic bias publicly. Then we talk about restoring your system." The attorneys murmured off-screen. Elena, watching the screen from the galley, staggered back a step, her face flushed. "He can't do this," she whispered. But the crew tablets were still locked, still flashing Elias's override. They could do nothing but watch. Darius swallowed hard. "We'll need a moment to confirm termination protocols." Elias raised one brow. "You don't have a moment. Your booking loss is already past 14 million. Every minute is a mile deeper." Clifford, arms folded and jaw clenched, shook his head. "This is a setup. You people in your—" He stopped himself, realizing too late. The entire plane was listening. Rafael Soto's CNN stream was now echoing that moment to viewers across the country. Harlow tried to step forward. "I didn't mean harm. I was just doing my job." But Elias turned to her, measured and cool. "Your job was to serve, not to decide who deserves dignity." A tone sounded. Amara's message appeared. "Legal just authorized the terminations. They're doing it live. All 3. A new feed appeared on screen, showing Apex's boardroom as 3 internal emails were projected on the wall. Termination of Harlow Quinn, flight services. Termination of Clifford Vance, cabin supervisor. Termination of Elena Vargas, in-flight operations. One to one. The 3 were formally dismissed. Darius looked up, the weight in his voice unmistakable. "They're gone. We've done as you asked. Now, Please unlock the system." Elias did not answer immediately. He turned to look at Harlow, who now stood hollow-eyed, clinging to the edge of the galley wall. Clifford's fists clenched. Elena, already seated in the rear, stared straight ahead as if hearing nothing. Then Elias said quietly, "They're gone. But what they represented is what?" Tristan Langford, still seated in 1B, leaned back and muttered under his breath, "This is absurd. They're letting you play judge and jury." Elias cut in. "Mr. Langford, you kicked a man's briefcase. You incited bias. You weaponized perception. And you will never fly Apex Air again." Darius nodded grimly on screen. "Your frequent flyer status is revoked permanently." Tristan stood, furious, and was promptly told by a flight attendant to return to his seat or risk arrest upon landing. He sat, silent, smaller. Then came the moment no one expected. Darius looked up and asked, "Who are you, Elias?" The question was not rhetorical. It carried a kind of desperation, as if realizing too late that they had underestimated the man in seat 1A. Elias closed his tablet, folded his hands, and spoke to the entire cabin, the airline board, and millions watching live. "I am Elias Blackwell, CEO of Omnifair Solutions, former FAA Senior Systems Consultant, architect of 3 aviation security frameworks. The systems you rely on, I designed them. The backdoors you didn't know about, I built those too. And when I boarded this flight, I didn't come here to wage war. I came here to observe. But what I saw couldn't be ignored." The silence that followed was heavy. Raphael's live stream jumped to millions of viewers in less than a minute. Nia Vargas's Reddit thread surged again as people clipped Elias's words into quote cards. "I didn't come to wage war. I came to observe." Darius sat back in his chair. "We had no idea." Elias replied, "That's the problem." And then, just as the moment reached its apex, came the final twist that would define the headlines. Amara Crow posted a statement to TMZ, verified and time-stamped. FAA confirms Elias Blackwell as former regulatory advisor for federal flight systems. Omnifair Solutions currently holds over 60% of market share in aviation algorithm licensing. Alongside it was a short video, a clip from years earlier of Elias speaking at a federal aviation conference. "The greatest threat to safety," he had said then, "is not turbulence. It's arrogance dressed as policy." That clip alone hit millions of views within an hour. Yet even with all his power, Elias did not seek destruction. He turned to Clifford, who stood stiff in the corner. "You get one option, retraining. You'll enroll in Omnifair's bias reform program. And if you pass, you'll have a job. Not in first class, but in freight logistics, where you'll learn to handle weight without breaking people." Clifford's voice caught. "You'd give me a second chance?" Elias nodded. "I'm not here to cancel. I'm here to correct." Passengers murmured. A few clapped. A woman in 2D whispered, "That's real leadership." And in that moment, Elias Blackwell was not just the man who shut down an airline. He became something greater, an agent of accountability who proved that justice does not always shout. Sometimes it simply sits down and waits for the world to catch up. Shortly after the flight landed in Seattle, Elias Blackwell stood in front of a quiet press room, flanked by Amara Crow, Sienna Reyes, Rafael Soto, and Nia Vargas. Behind them, a digital banner read, "Omnifair Initiative, Aviation for Everyone." Elias stepped to the podium, not as a passenger this time, but as a policymaker. His voice was calm, resonant. "This isn't about one airline," he said. "This is about every system that thinks appearance is a metric, every gate where bias hides behind a smile, every algorithm that calculates value by skin tone, age, or attire." He paused as the room fell still. "What happened to me on this Apex flight wasn't personal. It was structural. And starting today, we begin dismantling it. With that, Elias unveiled Omnifair, a sweeping reform mandate adopted by Apex and 5 major U.S. airlines within days. It included mandatory anti-bias training for all crew, real-time behavior auditing via ensues sensors, and the elimination of all visual risk score algorithms. More significantly, it required airlines to make internal crew behavior logs and seat reassignment decisions available to DOT auditors and independent journalists within 30 days of each flight. Industry leaders grumbled behind closed doors, but the public was not asking anymore. They were demanding. Reddit lit up with support. Retired pilots wrote op-eds calling Omnifair the course correction aviation desperately needed. Nia Vargas's aviation post now had millions of upvotes. Raphael's CNN interview with Elias became the most watched segment of the week. Even passengers who once sat in silent complicity were now calling for reform in online testimonies. But beneath the applause and headlines, something darker was brewing. Sienna, reviewing log data from the system shutdown, noticed a pattern. Dozens of third-party access requests had pinged Apex's servers seconds before Elias's override. She traced the source to a contractor with no known affiliation with Omnifair. Curious, she dug deeper. What she found blew the story wide open. Apex had not just profiled passengers based on appearance. They had been selling those profiles. Every biometric trigger, every flagged risk seat, every complaint filed and suppressed, all of it was being bundled into behavioral data packages and quietly sold to private firms, insurance companies, travel brokers, and even political research groups. When Sienna showed the files to Elias, he did not speak for a full minute. Then he said, "We don't just have a bias problem. We have a privacy crisis." Amara verified the leak, and Raphael ran the story on CNN's special report under the title Flight Risk: The Hidden Economy of Passenger Profiling. The public outrage was immediate and seismic. A retired flight attendant turned whistleblower revealed she had been offered bonuses to input supplemental assessments on high-risk-looking passengers, code for anyone who made elite flyers uncomfortable. Within days, Apex stock fell 62%. Congressional leaders called emergency hearings. The Department of Transportation, under mounting pressure, fast-tracked a bipartisan bill, the Passenger Fairness and Data Protection Act, that made it illegal for airlines to collect, analyze, or share passenger identity data without explicit consent and third-party oversight. Airlines scrambled to adjust. Apex's competitors quietly reached out to Omnifair, asking to license Omnifair tools before their own skeletons hit the light. But Elias refused exclusive contracts. "Reform," he said in a joint statement with Nia and Sienna, "is not for sale." While the aviation world tried to catch up, Elias stayed grounded, literally and figuratively. He visited a flight academy in Atlanta, talking to young black pilots who had watched his story unfold like a movie, but felt its truth like scripture. He told them, "You're not guests in this industry. You're architects. Start designing like it." He did not mention Elena Vargas or Clifford Vance again, not in public. But word spread that Clifford, now in retraining, had been assigned to Omnifair's logistics division in Chicago. His first assignment, an internal audit on crew treatment patterns. A small, quiet penance, but one that mattered. The system had cracked. The code had been rewritten, and Elias had done it without yelling, without rage, without ever standing up from his seat. Not because he could not, but because power sometimes speaks loudest when it does not move at all. In the months that followed the storm that grounded Apex Air's digital empire, the dust had settled, but the memory had not. Elena Vargas's name had quietly disappeared from the industry, her LinkedIn profile deactivated, her pension under review. Last anyone saw, she was working at a private charter company in Reno, filing invoices under a new department title, Operations Support. Harlow Quinn had taken a job at a hotel in Oklahoma City, folding towels behind closed doors. Guests never saw her. Her silence had grown louder than any broadcast. As for Tristan Langford, his name had been removed from every Apex database. The company released a vague statement citing customer conduct violations, but the real sentence came from the court of public perception. His corporate speaking invitations dried up. His board memberships quietly ended. A once proud executive reduced to an online footnote beneath Reddit threads and grainy TMZ clips. None of them apologized publicly. None had to. The world had already seen them in action. But justice was not the full measure of the moment, because Elias Blackwell did not believe in ruin for its own sake. He believed in accountability with a door still open if someone chose to walk through it. And one person did. Clifford Vance. Assigned to Omnisys' logistics office in Chicago, Clifford showed up on time, took notes during retraining, and never once asked for special treatment. He sat in the back, studied hard, and when asked why, he gave the same answer every time. Because someone gave me another shot. One Friday morning, Elias visited the site unannounced. He stood in the break room quietly as Clifford wrapped up a workshop on conflict resolution. The room clapped. Clifford turned and froze. Elias stepped forward, extended his hand, and said, "Earn it." Clifford gripped his hand without a word, and something passed between them. Not absolution, not erasure, but the hard-won beginning of something better. And that was the lesson Elias chose to leave behind. Because this was not just a story about a flight gone wrong. It was about what comes after, what you build once you have shut something broken down. And Elias built something lasting. Omnifair, once a reactive initiative, became a movement. By the end of the year, 4 more airlines adopted its platform. One introduced anonymous bias assessments from passengers. Another banned onboard seat reassignments without video verification. College aviation programs began teaching Omnifair principles in first-year courses. Nia Vargas led a coalition of passengers-turned-advocates, pushing for equitable design in travel. Sienna Reyes joined the FAA Oversight Board. Rafael Soto's documentary. Seat 1A, the flight that changed the skies, won a Peabody Award. And Elias? He returned to work quietly, without press, without tours. But one final twist remained. One the world would not see until one ordinary morning. That morning, passengers flying Apex again noticed something new on their boarding passes. A gold triangle beside their names. Small. Subtle. Below it, a line of text in fine print. Equity verified. When asked, an Apex gate agent explained, "It means your seat was assigned by human review, not algorithm. It's part of a new fairness audit we do." Travelers smiled. Most nodded. Some did not even notice. But one woman, older, seated in 3A, looked at the symbol, then turned to the man beside her. "Didn't that start with someone?" she asked. The man smiled. "Yeah, a guy in seat 1A. He didn't stand up, but he stood for everyone." Elias never spoke of that moment. He did not need to. The skies had changed. The code had been rewritten. And somewhere far above the clouds, a man who had once been asked to leave his seat had claimed something far greater. His voice, his dignity, and a legacy that would never fly under the radar.